Just got back from Colorado, well, a day or two ago. You know, I'm not as young as I used to be. I'm getting pretty close to 50 now, so I'm 47 this year, 48 next year. Yeah, compared to some of you, I'm still young. But I'm not as young as I used to be, and boy, the bones start getting old and brittle. So do the joints. Well, you know, the King's been doing a lot of challenges for peace militia and peace police, and so, you know, watching the King do all of his jiu-jitsu and do all the training for going up the mountains, you know, it's been forcing me to work on getting a little bit better, more into shape than I was even a year and a half ago. I used to take jiu-jitsu when I was much younger, like 10, 15 years ago now. But because of all of the King's training, I have actually had to start trying to get back into shape, and started training again like 6 months ago. You get old. you get old. But the thing is that your body deteriorates, and it doesn't function as well as it used to, and you can't. Your endurance goes down, but you know your strength comes back pretty quickly, and your mind's still working. Yeah, your mind's still working. It's the same thing for going on long hikes, like up in what the King did the last couple of days up in Colorado, where he's doing the 35-mile alpine hike through those high Rocky Mountains. Now, that's, you know, between 10 to 12,000 feet, your body's really struggling to get oxygen into it. And so we were up there with the King to give him some moral encouragement and to see him off on his 35-mile Fjell Raven marathon or trek through the Rocky Mountains. And we spent a few days up there in the Rockies at about 10,000 feet elevation, and it does take a toll on you. And I was up there. I brought my quad runner, so I was able to get up into the higher elevations to look around, and the views up there are tremendous. But even just driving around in quad runner, when you get back to camp, the altitude sickness just hits you, and you know, really knocks you out pretty good. So I actually had to come back down a little bit to a lower altitude for a couple of hours to start feeling normal again. You know, you get lightheaded, you get headaches, and feel kind of nauseous. You don't have any more energy to stand. So, yeah, you really need to get accustomed to that higher elevation. But from what I hear about, after a week or so up there, and you know, if you're there for a few months, then your body gets used to it. But for lowlanders like us, especially when you're older, it takes some time to get adjusted. But when I look at my kids up there in the higher elevations, the kids seem pretty okay. They adjusted pretty quickly. So you can see a big difference in terms of age and ability to acclimatize to higher altitudes. So it's a good thing that the King is still a young man. He can adjust the altitude and get out there and hike. For old people like us, we would have to probably spend 2 or 3 weeks up there before we attempt to hike like that. But it's good to get into that mode of figuring out, you know, challenging yourself to be a person who can, even at an elderly age, be a sovereign. You know, be a peace military man or a peace policeman. And that challenge is a challenge given to us not only from the second King, but it's a challenge given to us from our true Father and God. Amen. And Jesus. Yes. You know, Jesus Christ was the original peace military and peace police, right? Yeah. I know the Catholic Church and a lot of churches, established churches around the world, tried to rewrite the history of Jesus Christ, but you know that Jesus Christ was a weapons manufacturer, right? Yes. You guys all know this, right? Go read the Bible. When he chased the money changers out of the temple, he spent a few hours in the wilderness making a whip with barbs. By definition, that's called weapons manufacturing, okay? It's in the Bible. But, the Kingdom series, which our King has been talking about, that's really been, quite a tremendous message in his sermons. And, last week before he went on his trek, he talked about the difference between the commandment of not murdering versus not killing. It's a big difference. And a lot of people do not know that Jesus Christ actually supported the death penalty. Did you know this? It's absolutely true. He actually prescribed the punishment for a specific crime. If you read Matthew 18:6, King James Bible, this is what it says. But whosoever shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck, and that he were drowned in the depth of the sea. Amen. That's Matthew 18. Jesus Christ said basically, the people who offend the little ones who believe in Christ should be executed. Did you know about that? Yes. He did. And that's the message which we need to get out. We need to get out the message of who Christ really is. Because Christ in his first coming and Christ in his second coming are pretty much identical. And what the archangelic figures around Christ try to do to Christ after he's gone is identical too. They tried to turn Christ, who's a very masculine man who advocates establishing God's sovereignty and God's authority, and turn him into an ephemeral whip. And that's exactly what the heretic Fed is doing today. Is they're trying to feminize true Father. And that's why they deny the lineage of God and the kingship of God. And they deny the second king. So the challenge which we have, the followers of Reverend Sun Myung Moon and Jesus Christ, the true Lord of the universe, is for us to truly serve Christ as he is, not as we want him to be. And that is really the challenge for all people in this world, is to understand the nature of what it means to be righteous. What is the nature of righteousness? And what is the nature of sin? Because this is fundamental for us to understand if we want to become a person who stands in the righteousness of Christ. And the understanding righteousness is very simple. It is basically living and being within the will of God. It is not as I will, but as the Lord wills. Yes. And if we live in the will of the Lord, then we are righteous. But if we strive to live in our individual will, then we are sinful. So that is the main point which we need to understand as we live our lives, is how we can live as God wills us to live, and how we can separate ourselves from sinfulness. And so if you understand righteousness and sinfulness in that manner, then everything which the atheists and the heretics and the leftists and the feminists point out as problems in the Bible are not problems. They're very consistent. And even in the Old Testament, when God orders his people to wipe out the descendants who have the fallen, lineage of the Nephilim, there's a specific reason why he called for that. And that is righteousness for his people to carry out his will. It's not sinfulness. And that's the important distinction we need to make. We need to understand that we cannot look at morality and human rights from the humanist point of view. Morality and human rights and righteousness has to be looked at in accordance to God's will. And when we understand the difference between humanism and righteousness in God's will, then we can clearly explain the Bible in terms of its teaching and show very clearly that it is absolutely 100% consistent. God throughout biblical history is the same God, is a very consistent God, is a just God, is a truthful God. And he is a God who truly loves his people. So that's what I would like to leave you with. I would like to leave you with that and challenge you all to search for the righteousness in God's will. And in doing so, I'm sure you will bring great joy to our Father. Thank you very much.